Have you ever felt it? That almost imperceptible, yet profoundly unsettling vibration that emanates from certain highly intelligent souls. It's a feeling that most people can't quite grasp, a sense of distance that isn't born of coldness, but of something far deeper, something almost otherworldly. It's like standing in a silent forest and hearing a low, constant hum just beneath the surface of hearing a frequency that others seem completely oblivious to. They appear to exist on a different wavelength, not in a way that suggests superiority, but as if they are tuned to a different cosmic station, one that broadcasts the subtle truths of the universe, while the rest of the world is consumed by the deafening static of the mundane. What you are witnessing in these moments is not arrogance, not a lack of social grace, and certainly not a flaw. It is the sacred and often lonely path of a soul undergoing a profound awakening. It is the unmistakable signature of a spirit that has consciously or unconsciously chosen a path less traveled, a deep, winding journey inward that can make the loud, chaotic outer world seem foreign, strange, and at times, utterly incomprehensible. This is a divine marker, a signpost from the universe indicating that you are in the presence of someone whose perception has begun to pierce through the thick veil of ordinary reality. Consider historical figures like Nikola Tesla, a man whose mind operated on such a high frequency that he found solace not in the company of men, but in the silent, pulsing energy of his own creations and the universe itself. His apparent detachment was the very condition that allowed his genius to flourish, a sacred solitude that birthed technologies that would change the world. If this feeling resonates deep within your being, if you have ever felt like a solitary lighthouse keeper on a storm-tossed shore, a stranger in a land of noise, or if you recognize this sacred pattern of withdrawal in someone you love, then know this: you have found your tribe. You are not broken, and you are not alone. Like this video to affirm this connection. Subscribe to our channel to continue this journey of soul-nourishing wisdom, and share your own resonant experiences in the comments below. Your story is a powerful beacon for others who are navigating this same sacred path. Affirm your presence by typing "I'm not alone" or 777 and feel the collective energy of souls who truly understand. You must understand, this phenomenon is not a modern ailment to be diagnosed or a psychological quirk to be fixed. It is an ancient and sacred process, a form of spiritual armor that has been meticulously forged in the roaring fires of heightened perception. These intelligent individuals are not antisocial in the way the world defines it. They are, in fact, strategically solitary. Their engagement is not selective out of spite or disinterest, but out of a divine and pressing necessity to protect the sanctity of their inner world. Imagine, for a moment, that your mind is a sacred temple, a hallowed ground where the divine spark of your consciousness resides. Would you allow this sacred space to be desecrated by the endless, meaningless chatter of the marketplace day in and day out? Would you permit the psychic static of unexamined emotions, the cacophony of fleeting opinions, and the low-vibration gossip to echo off its hallowed walls? Of course not. You would carefully, reverently, choose who and what is allowed to enter, ensuring that every influence honors the profound sanctity of the space within. This is the profound choice these souls make, consciously or not, with every breath and every interaction. They have become the vigilant guardians of their own consciousness, and their solitude is the impenetrable fortress that protects the sacred integrity of their sharp, luminous minds. Throughout history, the mystics, the sages, and the great thinkers have always sought the sanctuary of solitude. From the desert fathers to the Himalayan hermits, they understood that to hear the voice of the divine, one must first quiet the noise of the world. What the unawakened masses perceive as aloofness or emotional distance is, in truth, one of the most profound acts of self-preservation and self-love. It is a living testament to their deep intuitive understanding that their inner peace, their mental clarity, and their connection to Source are invaluable treasures that must be fiercely protected from the relentless, soul-crushing onslaught of a world that so often values deafening noise over quiet substance and blind conformity over authentic truth. They have deeply integrated a universal law that so many of us have forgotten in our desperate scramble for external validation. The quality of your inner world dictates, without exception, the quality of your outer experience. Therefore, they curate their reality with the focused precision of a master artist, and sometimes, the most beautiful masterpiece they can create is a vast, serene, and beautiful landscape of silence where their soul can finally, deeply, and truly breathe. This sacred journey of detachment is a concept that the great spiritual psychologist Carl Jung, a man who walked this path himself, understood with an unparalleled and visionary depth. He saw this movement not as a pathological turning away from life, but as a courageous and necessary turning towards the true self, the divine core of our being. He called this sacred pilgrimage the path of individuation, the holy, often arduous quest to become the whole, integrated person you were always destined to be. Separate and distinct from the deafening cacophony of societal expectations, the sticky emotional projections of others, and the powerful, unconscious demands of the collective consciousness. It is the painful but liberating process of shedding 1,000 false skins, the skin of familial expectation, the armor of societal approval, the mask of perpetual agreeableness to finally reveal the radiant, authentic, and divine core of your being. Jung recognized that for the highly intelligent, deeply perceptive mind, this is not just an attractive option, it is an unavoidable, soul-deep calling. The more your consciousness awakens, the more you see. And the more you see, the more you begin to realize that so much of what the world frantically calls connection is nothing more than an elaborate performance, a projection of unmet needs, a sorrowful dance of shadows, where unconscious needs are temporarily soothed, but true, authentic souls rarely, if ever, touch. Imagine sitting at a dinner party, listening to conversations that skim across the surface of life, like stones on water, while your own mind is wrestling with the vastness of the cosmos, the nature of consciousness, or the deep yearnings of your own soul. The disconnect is staggering. This piercing realization is a divine and sometimes excruciatingly painful gift. It presents a stark and unavoidable fork in the road of your spiritual journey. Do you continue to play the well-rehearsed social games that feel increasingly hollow, a slow and subtle poison that numbs your spirit? Do you keep nodding and smiling while your soul screams in the silent prison of your own mind? Or will you answer the insistent, loving call of your soul? Take a courageous step back, embrace the sacred act of detachment, and begin to consciously create the vast, quiet, and holy mental and emotional space that is absolutely necessary for your own authentic growth, your divine alignment, and the ultimate fulfillment of your soul's purpose. The answer to that pivotal question is what separates the awakening soul from the sleeping masses. Most people, when they arrive at this critical juncture, choose the former, more well-trodden path. They choose to continue playing the games, not out of any inherent malice, but out of a deep, primal, and often unconscious fear, the paralyzing fear of being alone with their own thoughts. The terror of being different from the tribe, the profound fear of the vast, uncharted, and seemingly dangerous territory of their own inner world. They scramble for the distraction of the crowd, for the comforting anesthesia of constant noise, because the silence forces them to confront the parts of themselves they have spent a lifetime avoiding. To them, solitude is not a sanctuary. It is a void, a punishment, a glaring sign of social failure. But the intelligent, the sensitive, the truly aware, they choose the latter path. They choose the sacred road of solitude, and they choose it not out of fear, but out of a profound and blossoming wisdom. They have glimpsed something more, something real, something eternal. Where others see the barren desolation of loneliness, they see the rich, fertile ground where the seeds of clarity and genius can finally sprout. Where others fear the bitter sting of abandonment, they discover the exhilarating, breathtaking liberation of freedom from the exhausting burden of judgment, freedom from the soul-crushing need to perform, and most importantly, the sacred freedom to finally, at long last, hear the clear, quiet whisper of their own soul. This is not because they are emotionally deficient or incapable of profound love. On the contrary, it's because they have learned a fundamental, life-altering truth that most will never grasp. Their greatest, most world-changing insights, their most profound and lasting spiritual growth, and the most authentic, radiant expression of their divine self do not emerge in the chaotic, overstimulating whirlwind of constant external connection. They are born in the deliberate, chosen, and sacred space of solitude, like a perfect pearl formed in the silent, patient darkness of the oyster's shell. This conscious choice for solitude is deeply rooted in the development of a kind of spiritual and psychological consciousness that Jung identified as a higher, more evolved form of awareness. It is the powerful ability to observe not just what people do, but to perceive with stunning clarity the unseen energetic currents of why they do it. When you begin to possess this heightened awareness, a peculiar and sometimes challenging form of isolation naturally arises. You start to see the intricate, invisible machinery behind all human behavior. You feel as though you are watching a grand, elaborate, and often tragic play unfold on the world stage, while everyone else around you is utterly convinced that their scripted roles and predictable dramas are real life. This is not a descent into cold, detached cynicism. It is a courageous ascent into radical, unshakable clarity. And you must understand this divine truth. Clarity, while being the most liberating and empowering force in the universe, can also be the most profoundly and achingly isolating. You begin to notice the unconscious motivations simmering just beneath the surface of people's words, the subtle, deep-seated fears that masquerade as love and affection, the gaping, unhealed insecurities that fuel the insatiable need for constant external validation. You come to understand the complex, often contradictory psychological needs that drive the vast majority of social interactions, needs that have very little to do with genuine, heart-centered connection and everything to do with soothing old, festering wounds and fulfilling the desperate, unmet desires of a neglected inner child. To see the world with this level of perception is to stand on a high mountain peak, able to see the intricate dance of cause and effect, the karmic threads weaving through conversations, and the unspoken histories that dictate every interaction. You see the storm clouds gathering long before the first drop of rain falls, while those lost in the foggy valleys below are tossed about by emotional tempests they cannot comprehend, forever reacting but never understanding. And the most isolating part? You know that you cannot simply descend and explain the storm to them, for they would not believe you. They would only call you mad. This heightened, multi-layered perception often forces the intelligent, sensitive soul to live what feels like an exhausting and fragmented double life. There is the authentic self, the true self, the one that lives and breathes in the vast, complex and beautiful inner world of abstract ideas, interconnected patterns, and profound, deep feelings. And then there is the socially acceptable self, the carefully constructed and meticulously maintained persona that must be presented to the world simply to maintain a basic level of harmony and avoid constant friction. The constant, draining, and often thankless work of translating your intricate, multi-layered thoughts into simple, palatable, and digestible fragments for a world that largely operates on a much different, less nuanced frequency is a hidden burden of immense weight. It is like being a brilliant composer, capable of creating vast, complex symphonies, but being forced to communicate only by playing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on a child's toy piano. This perpetual dumbing down of your own incredible insights, this constant, weary filtering of your own authentic truth to avoid unsettling or confusing those around you, creates a painful and deep internal split. It is a slow, quiet, and insidious erosion of the soul, a gradual disconnection from your own radiant core. This is precisely why the intelligent person's detachment is so often a necessary and vital protective mechanism. It is a shield against the sheer, overwhelming energy drain of maintaining relationships that lack genuine understanding, soul-level reciprocity, and a shared frequency of perception. They are not rejecting you as a person. They are rejecting the exhausting, soul-deadening performance of being a simplified, two-dimensional version of themselves. In their strategic solitude, they are making a powerful, conscious choice to preserve their precious life force for the people, the projects, and the pursuits that truly matter, for the things that nourish and expand their being, rather than diminish it. So, what truly happens in this sacred chosen solitude? Why is it such a powerful and irresistible magnet for the intelligent mind? It is because they have discovered what the wise Carl Jung so beautifully called the treasure in the depths. While the majority of people fear being alone because it forces them, often for the first time, to truly confront the disowned, unhealed, and chaotic parts of themselves, intelligent and introspective individuals have discovered a profound secret. It is in the quiet, holy sanctuary of solitude that the true self, the divine essence, can finally be found. It is here, in the vast, potent silence between the relentless noise of the world, that the richest, most brilliant, and most authentic parts of their being are allowed to emerge from the shadows. Solitude, for the intelligent and awakening mind, is never an absence but a profound and palpable presence. It is not about the pain of being alone, but about the sublime joy of finally, truly being with yourself in a way that is utterly and completely impossible when you are constantly managing the complex, exhausting dynamics of social interaction. In solitude, the mind is finally free to operate at its natural, high-frequency vibration, unburdened by the need to constantly adjust, translate, or accommodate the differing cognitive styles and emotional demands of others. It is in this unburdened, sacred space that the most significant, life-altering insights emerge as if from the ether. It is where elegant and creative solutions to the most complex problems are born, and where shallow philosophical understanding deepens into the unshakable, embodied wisdom that can only come from direct experience. The conscious act of detachment, therefore, is not a closing off from the world. It is the opening of a sacred doorway to a deeper, more meaningful, and more authentic engagement with life itself. This sacred detachment creates the necessary fertile ground for what Jung termed active imagination, the mind's sacred and powerful ability to engage in a living, dynamic dialogue with the deepest, most mysterious parts of the psyche. It is the innate capacity to dance with archetypes, to explore infinite possibilities through visualization, and to receive profound, symbolic insights that only emerge in the holy silence between the world's endless social interactions. This is the great paradox that lies at the very heart of this entire phenomenon, a paradox that is at once profoundly beautiful and deeply misunderstood by the conventional world. By courageously detaching from the often superficial and draining connections with others, intelligent people often become more intimately, powerfully, and authentically connected to themselves, their true, unfiltered thoughts and feelings, to their genuine, soul-aligned desires, and to their immutable divine values. This unshakable internal connection, this profound alignment with the higher self and source energy, then becomes the solid, unshakable foundation for any and all external relationships they consciously choose to maintain. You must see this truth. Most people in the world form relationships as a way to escape from themselves, to fill an inner void, to distract from their own inner emptiness. Intelligent people, however, often withdraw from relationships in order to courageously find themselves. And once they have discovered that solid, luminous inner ground, that unshakable connection to their own divine core, they can then connect with others from a place of overflowing wholeness, not from a place of desperate, aching need. This fundamental and profound difference in orientation, connecting from need versus connecting from wholeness, inevitably creates natural barriers to understanding between the intelligent, awakening soul and the majority of the population. What appears to an outside observer as cold rejection, dismissive aloofness, or even arrogance, is often simply a different, more conscious, and more energetically sustainable approach to human connection. It is an approach that, by its very nature, prioritizes profound depth over distracting breadth, authentic quality over meaningless quantity, and radical authenticity over comfortable accommodation. This is precisely why the solitude advantage is so crucial and so real. It explains why so many of the world's most brilliant and creative individuals are not just comfortable with, but actively thrive in extended periods of being alone. It's why they can go for days or even weeks without extensive social contact and not feel deprived or lonely, but rather feel deeply recharged, spiritually renewed, and creatively inspired. They almost always emerge from these periods of quiet, deep contemplation with a stunningly increased clarity, a powerful surge of unbridled creativity, and a deeper, more unshakable sense of psychological integration and wholeness. For the intelligent and awakening mind, remember this: detachment is not isolation, it is the sacred process of integration. It is the creation of the holy, necessary space to become fully and completely yourself before you can even begin to attempt to genuinely, authentically, and powerfully connect with another soul from a place of truth. For those of you who are trying to understand a beloved friend, partner, or family member who exhibits this sacred pattern, the key is to release your judgments and recognize that their detachment is almost never personal. It is the intricate and necessary psychological architecture required for their mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, in a world that can feel overwhelmingly abrasive to their sensitive systems. And for those of you who personally embody this pattern, who feel this truth resonating in the very marrow of your bones, the primary challenge of your life is not learning how to force yourself to be more social in the conventional, often superficial sense. It is, instead, learning to deeply honor your own natural sacred rhythms of engagement and withdrawal. It is about trusting your inner guidance system while still remaining courageously open to the rare and precious connections that genuinely enhance and expand your being, rather than drain your finite and precious psychological and spiritual resources. It is about having the unwavering courage to build a life around your profound need for depth and meaning, even if it means your social circle is smaller and quieter than the world tells you it should be. The detachment of intelligent people is not a flaw to be corrected, nor is it a defensive wall to be broken down. It is a natural, beautiful, and powerful adaptation to the unique and often unseen challenges of living with a heightened, luminous awareness in a world that frequently operates at more primitive, unconscious psychological levels. Understanding this sacred pattern, whether you see it in yourself or in others, opens the door to a new dimension of more authentic, more satisfying, and truly soul-deep human connections. It is the ultimate recognition that sometimes the most profoundly connected people in the world are the very ones who have first mastered the sacred and beautiful art of being alone,